Okay, so welcome to this lesson on blockchain. We're going to look very briefly at what exactly a blockchain is and what it might be able to do in the future, and how it's going to change the way we do business and all kinds of things. So just before we get started, it's very, very complicated. So we're going to look at it on a very simple level. And just so we walk away from this lesson with an understanding of roughly what it is. Okay, you can go to university much later on and study this for 3 or 4 years. You can do a PhD in it if you wish. In this lesson, we're just going to look at it very briefly on the sort of surface level to understand the basics behind it. So, what is it? Well, you might have heard of blockchain before in terms of Bitcoin, or you might never have heard of blockchain, but you might have heard of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a currency, a type of money that's entirely digital, entirely online, and it uses blockchain technology to work, to exist. So we're going to look at it a bit more closely, right? So as usual, you've got your numeracy and literacy task there. And then we move on to the context. Okay, so blockchain's method of encrypting data. So it's very difficult to hack. Yep, I know that students are always asking me about hacking and seem to be fascinated by it. Well, then blockchain is an attempt to protect information, to protect data online, to make sure people cannot hack it. To do that, it's got 3 methods or 3 layers of encryption that together make it very, very difficult to hack. So what it creates then is information or data that is safe and reliable, and that is going to be used for lots of things, such as Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin, like I said, is a type of money. The proper name for money made using blockchains is cryptocurrencies, right? Crypto because they're made from encryption, and currency because they're money, right? So encryption money, cryptocurrencies. Like I said, the technology behind blockchain is improving and changing, and it's slowly being introduced into new areas, which is changing how the world works. So let's have a look precisely at what it is all about. So it's invented in 1991 as a way of making sure that documents were legitimate. Yeah, we spend a lot of time and money in this world making sure that certificates or pieces of paper are authenticated. Okay, when I have to apply for a job, often they will ask to see my certificates showing I have degrees, but they will also want to make sure they are authenticated. Or if they want to see my birth certificate, I have to go take it to a lawyer who has to stamp it, who has to check it, who has to make sure it's authentic, make sure it's real, because you can create forgeries. You can create fake versions of things. So in 1991, some scientists were trying to figure out how they could create a mechanism to make sure that online documents could not be faked or copied or changed. So that's what they came up with, blockchain. But it sort of sat there for a while until 2009, when it was picked up and used again to make this time a currency called Bitcoin, and that took off. And it's, if you Google Bitcoin, there are millions of news stories all about it. Its value has gone up and up and up. So if you were one of the people that bought Bitcoin at the beginning, you'll be a very rich person now because the value has gone up. But it's also very controversial because it doesn't require a central authority to make it legitimate. It is often used or is associated with some crimes. Often hackers, when they hack your computer, they'll ask to be paid in Bitcoin because it's a lot harder to track down who they are. If they just ask for you to transfer money to their bank account, then the police would be able to track them down very easily. But if they ask to be paid in Bitcoin, this makes it very difficult for them to be found. So, right, there's a really, really good video here to watch. Okay, so watch that YouTube video. It explains everything perfectly, I feel. And it goes through the 3 steps to making Bitcoin safe, making it reliable. Step 1, step 2, step 3. So we're going to talk through them very quickly. Step 1, hash codes. Right, so I'll try and go slowly so you get your head around it. Blockchain is a chain of blocks. Okay. Each block has three things in it. It has the data, it has a hash code, and it has the previous block's hash code in the chain. So you can see there, you've got this blue block here. Its hash code is 1 alpha 4 Zulu. And the previous hash is 000, because this is actually the first block in the chain. Look at the orange block. This is the second block in the chain. Its hash is 2 kilo 0 golf, but it also contains in it the previous hash code, 1 alpha 4 Zulu. As you can see, the green code, the green hash code goes from the blue one into the orange one, and then the orange one's hash code will appear in the next one in the sequence. So every block is linked back to the previous one using those hash codes. Right. Each hash code then is unique to that block, and it's tied to the data in that block. So if you try to change that data, you will change the hash code. So for example, if I break into that orange box and change the information inside of it, that hash code for the orange block, which is currently 2KOG or 2K0G, will change, which means that the next block in the line, its previous hash won't match up with this one, and so they won't connect anymore, and I will have broken the chain. So that's the first layer of security in a blockchain. Yeah, the previous hashtags must all line up to make the chain. If you change any of the information, you break the chain, and therefore you break the data. Okay? You break the blockchain. So it's useless. So that is one way of making sure that the information you put into a blockchain does not change. Right. But there is a way, isn't there? We could write a really clever computer program that could edit and change the hash codes and still make the blockchain work. Yes, we could do that, which is why there is step 2 called proof of work. Blockchains are built around a very, very, very complicated set of algorithms, which means that if you want to change a hash code, even using today's supercomputers, it takes about 10 minutes. Certainly for Bitcoin, it takes 10 minutes to create a new hash code for Bitcoin. That's using a very, very fast computer. So this process is called proof of work, and this is deliberate. It is deliberately very, very complicated, so that even computers take a long time to do it. So if you want to change the hashtag, then it's almost impossible, because you have to change all of the hash codes at the same time to make sure the blockchain continues to work, and it's going to take you forever, even using some of the world's best computers. So that makes it extra safe. Step 3 is what's called the distributed ledger, which is a fantastic word. Distributed ledger makes you sound very clever. Distributed ledger. What it means is basically that all the blockchains are copied and then spread out all around the internet. But as this diagram shows, they are still all linked to each other. Every copy is linked to every other copy. And what that means is if one person tries to change one copy, it will then check in with its other copies around the internet to see if they also have that change. And if they don't, it will just reject the change. So it makes it even more difficult to hack into a blockchain. So to do that, what you'd need to do is you'd have to find every single copy of it on the internet. You then have to get all the hash codes in all the copies changed all at the same time. And to change just one of them takes 10 minutes with an incredibly powerful computer. So it's almost impossible. I say almost. People are starting to figure out ways of doing it, but it's still very, very safe at the moment. So yeah, it's very clever. One, you've got your hash codes to make sure that no one changes the data. If you change the data, you break the blockchain. If you try and hack the whole thing, that's been taken care of by proof of work, so making sure that it's just so complicated and so long to hack every single hash code. It's almost impossible to do. And even if you do figure a way of doing that, you're then still going to hunt down every single copy of it on the internet and hack them all at the same time. So it's practically impossible to change the data inside a blockchain, which is why it is used so effectively in Bitcoin. Yeah, if you want money that's safe, a cryptocurrency, at least on the surface, sounds very safe when it comes to our uses for it here. Your first task for today then, please, is just to write a sentence or two about each step. What are hash codes and why are they good for keeping the data safe? What is proof of work and why is that good for keeping the data safe? And what is a distributed ledger and why does that help keep the information safe? Okay, so just a sentence or two for each one of those, please. Right then, what can it be used for? Well, the list is actually huge, but I've just picked out 4 things here that I think are quite interesting. Number one, obviously, is the currency, the blockchain, the cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. There's loads of cryptocurrencies out there now. And in a way, it makes sense, right? Think about it. Say I keep all my money in pound sterling, yeah, which is the UK government, UK currency, yeah, pound coins. Say I keep all my money in pound sterling, right? Okay, well, look at what's happening in the world today. You've got the pandemic crisis. You've got, in the UK, you've got Brexit coming up. You've got all these things that are going to cause problems for the economy. And who's to say that the governor of the Bank of England, who's the guy or girl, he's a guy at the moment, but is the person who's in charge of that currency, doesn't start to print more? I mean, which is actually what they are doing. Through a fancy technique called quantitative easing. But so they start printing money. That devalues money. You can't print more money without making the money you have worth less than it used to be. So some people say that your money is not safe because a politician or a bank boss could at any moment do something crazy that would make your savings worth less than they were. But with a cryptocurrency, nobody on earth has the power to change that value. We can attribute value to it in other, in dollars and in pounds and in dirhams and whatever else, but the actual integrity, the actual value of that blockchain cannot be changed. Of that Bitcoin cannot be changed. So that's why some people think that cryptocurrencies, there's going to be a big future in them. Other people think that it's just a crazy bubble and that eventually someone will figure out a way to hack these things and all the money people have put into Bitcoin will come tumbling down. But that remains to be seen. Right, next thing that's really cool, potential future for it, is health records. Health records are really important, but there's also a problem with them. They're important because they let doctors know your medical history, which, if you are sick, if the doctor doesn't know your history, he could do the wrong thing, and you could end up dying. So it's important that you can share your health records quickly, but at the same time, you want your health records to be kept secret. You don't want everyone knowing any, embarrassing diseases you might have had in the past. So, plus people might use it against you if they know your health. So if you made your health record as a Bitcoin, as a blockchain, then that would be good. No one can tamper with it. No one can change it. No one can edit it. And you can share it around the world at the speed of light. And it should still be quite safe. Right, next thing. Now, this one's quite cool as well, but you need to get your head around it. Land titles. It sounds really boring, right? But in some countries, and I'm going to use Africa as an example here, although it's not exclusively in Africa, but some countries, let's take some countries in Africa as an example. Land is not a reliable thing to own, right? And that is because, say you go to the United States of America and you buy several acres of land. Now the fact that you own that land, you get a certificate that says I own that land, and that certificate is then registered with the land registry in the United States of America, so that no matter what happens, everyone knows that you own that land. However, a country has to have a fair stable system of land registry for that to make sense. And a lot of these countries don't have that yet, which means if you're a business person with lots of money to invest, you don't want to buy land in an African country because you might get cheated out of it, or someone else might come along with another certificate that they'd got from a different land registry, and then you'd be in court fighting over who owned that land. It got all very complicated, and it's so complicated that a lot of businesses think, you know what, I'm just not going to bother. I'll spend my money somewhere else. But if you tied land titles to blockchain, then you'd have a reliable, secure way that no one could argue with that said, I own that land. So that's one way of doing it. And the other thing is school records. Okay, I mentioned this at the beginning of the lesson. School records. Yeah, when I go for a job, I have to get my degree certificate authenticated to prove that it's not a fake degree. And that takes some time, and it takes money, and it's complicated. If they'd just given my degree to me with a blockchain copy, a blockchain version, then no one would ever argue that my degree was real, because the university would have made that blockchain degree, and it could never be changed, it could never be argued, it was authentic. So that could be something. In the future, your CV could be a blockchain. And that would give people automatic 100% trust that what you were saying was true. Right, challenge task. Okay, now, if your brains are not blown by this point, oh, sorry, there's an activity there. Activity for this one, please. There's 4 different possible uses for blockchain. I would like you to put them into order of importance. Okay, which one do you think is most important and which one do you think is the least important? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, and be ready to justify your decision later on. Right, challenge task. If your brain is not blown, there is a challenge task to do, which is to read this sentence here, read this paragraph, and answer those 3 questions. Right, blockchain mining, okay, or Bitcoin mining. Yeah, you might have heard this, you might hear about it. It sounds a bit crazy, yeah? Mining, what's mining? Mining is digging stuff, digging minerals like gold out of the ground. That's what mining is. So how can you mine Bitcoin or blockchains? Well, you do. Well, you don't. What they do is mining is creating blockchains. They call it mining. The reason they call it mining is because it's a little bit like mining in the sense that, say you're a gold miner, there's only so much gold in the world. Now, blockchains, because of the algorithms they use, there can only ever be so many types of a certain blockchain. So, for example, Bitcoin is limited to 21 million Bitcoins. Now, there aren't those many in existence yet, because to make a Bitcoin, you have to go mining. Now, mining is doing that proof of work. Remember step 2? Let's go back to step 2. Step 2, mining is having a very fast computer creating new hash codes that can create new blocks that you can add to your blockchain, right? So think about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a money. If you can get a computer to do the hash code to create new blockchains, and blockchain is money, you're creating money, basically, right? And that's what blockchain mining is all about. Supercomputers that sit there 24/7 and just crunch through those very, very complicated proof of work algorithms to create new create new hash codes that allow you to make new blocks in your blockchain. So they're basically making money. And once they've made it, they can then sell it on. So that's what they do. And some companies are making an absolute fortune out of blockchain mining. Okay. But there are some drawbacks to it, and that is because it's so complicated and you need these big advanced computers, they tend to draw huge amounts of power. There are some crazy stats out there. To be honest with you, I've forgotten them off the top of my head, but it's about something like how one blockchain miner consumes as much electricity as Sweden or something like that. It's just, there are huge, very energy inefficient at the moment. Arguably, you could switch your energy source to renewable sources, and it wouldn't be as much of a problem. But it's still a very big drain on electric grids to operate all these supercomputers to mine for blockchains. Okay, so hopefully you've now got a slight appreciation for what blockchain is, what it can do, and why it's so secure. And have a go at the quiz that's there. Okay, hope all that helped.